Hello, everybody. It is Corey Poirier. Excited to be here on this is, I guess, the fifth edition of the Blue Talks. I'm going to call it feature series. I'm still searching for the actual name I want to give it long term, but it's an opportunity for us to highlight and introduce you to Blue Talks community members. Part of the reason I was just talking to one of the people about this that's going to be coming on and joining us soon as to why I wanted to have it structured like this rather than me just doing interviews. And part of that is because I feel it's a great opportunity to introduce more people to our both community and the world at one time. Meaning this is going to be our fifth in the series. And by having an interviewer and an interviewee that's not me, that means we've been able to highlight 10 people already rather than 5. So that's the reasoning behind the structure that we're taking on this. What I like to do to kick things off before I bring on our fantastic two, I'm going to call them guests, even though one's an interviewer, one's an interviewee. One of the things I like to do is talk about one little thing from my book. Every time I do sort of a little cheap plug, and I'm not really good at the cheap plugs, but I feel like the show is sort of sponsored by the book. I don't know if that's really the case or not, but it gives me an opportunity to hopefully share one thing that somebody can use in their life and give you one piece of value before I jump off. Because I always feel if I'm going to be here taking your time for a couple minutes, I like to give you something you can use. And so what I wanted to talk about today that I talk about in the book is a thing called the power of no. And so what this means to me, the power of no, is it relates to when you manage your time and people ask you to take on something, are you always saying yes? Are you taking on too much? Is there too much going on in your life? And anybody who knows me knows I juggle a lot. And in some cases, that might mean I am taking on too much, and sometimes maybe not. But, and I'm human. I'm fallible. I make mistakes too. But, I take on a lot. I do have great people that help me, but I do take on a lot. But one thing I also do, which a lot of people don't see behind the scenes, is I say no to a lot as well. And one of the things I noticed when I've been interviewing the world's top leaders, high achievers, what have you, is that they say no. And I tried to, I'm going to say it wasn't very scientific, but I did it as best I could, tried to calculate some numbers just with a small Nielsen study, if you're familiar with the TV rating system, small Nielsen study. I tried to figure out how often the high achievers say no. And what it seemed to me, what I came up with was that they say no on average 10 times more than most people. So what I mean by that is when they get asked to do something, they're more inclined to say no than yes. But I found that most people are more inclined to say yes because they feel guilty and then figure out how to do it. A lot of times that means they take on too much. And so what I want you to take from this is it might not feel good to say no. It might be hard to say no. It might be a struggle. But if you want to create more impact in the world, you're probably going to have to say no to some things. I'm also going to give you a strategy. This is behind the scenes curtain thing, but I noticed our interviewee disappeared. So I'm going to buy a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds at least for her to come back. So I'll dive deeper into this power of no thing and say that one of the struggles people have is how do you say no? So it's easy for me to say you got to start saying no more, but that doesn't mean it's easy to do it. And the secondary part is if you are saying no, how do you do it in such a way that you don't burn a bridge? And I'm sure you've all been there where you've said no to somebody and then felt guilty and felt like, I'm going to ruin the friendship by saying no. So I'm going to actually use somebody else's strategy, but it was very powerful. It's a lady named Shailene Johnson, or Shailene Johnson, depending on how you pronounce her name, or Shailene. But Shailene is the creator of Turbo Jam. So Beachbody, if you're familiar with Beachbody, which is the same company that released the P90X program with Tony Horton. So Shailene's Turbo Jam will be comparable to P90X. I think it sold like 6 million copies. So Shailene has reached a lot of people, and she's a big-time Instagram influencer. That's just a little plug for her. If I'm going to share her name, I might as well tell you a bit about her. But Shailene, one of the things that she said to me when I asked her, how do you juggle everything? How do you manage so much? Is she said that what she does, and she shared this example that when they were opening all their studios for Turbo Jam across North America, a lot of instructors that were located near her home would reach out and say, Shailene, I can't make the class tonight. Can you take on the class? And here she was building this global company. So she realized she had to figure out a way to decide if it was a no or a yes in a nice way. And so what she did is she essentially, she would say that she would say to the person, my husband, Brett, and I were very family oriented. So I have to talk to him and just double check that we don't have anything going on during that day or this time or weekend. And then can I get back to you? I promise to get back to you as soon as possible. And if I can't do it myself, I'll try to offer up somebody you can. Would that be okay? Now, when you hear that, let me ask you, would anybody really get mad at somebody if they said, you know, I just got to be worried about my family time, make sure we're not overstepping it, but I will get back to you for sure, let you know either way. If I can do it, I will. And if I can't, I'll find somebody who can to help you. Now, what she's doing, which is great, is she's giving herself time to decide if it's a yes or a no, first of all. More important, perhaps, is she's doing it in a way that it's hard to get mad at her. How can you get mad at somebody that says we're family oriented and I just want to make sure I'm not interfering? It's not only my time I have to take into account. And so what happened, she found, is that people didn't get mad at her for saying no. So it allowed her to say no in a way that, like I say, it didn't burn any bridges. And on top of that, she found a lot of times people would actually get the problem solved anyway. And so she didn't have to worry about it then. So having said all that, the power of no, I want you to think about, when should you say no? Are you analyzing what's a no and a yes? Do you have a system for figuring out a no? And are you willing to say no when you need to? I'll give you one super quick tip that I talk about in the book. I have a mission statement. I call it my personal mission statement. And basically it goes like this. I want to be the guy who motivates, donates, inspires, educates, and entertains. And so if you ask me to take something on, I look and say, is it 4 or 5 of those? If it is, it's an easy yes without regrets. If it's not, it's an easy no without regrets. So if you can figure out what you stand for and what you stand against, you can figure out what your mission statement is. That'll help you decide what to say yes and no to, and be willing to say no to the things that don't serve your bigger purpose. And I think you'll find that that serves you so much better. So with that being said, I notice our interviewee is back. So I'm going to attempt to bring them both on. And let's see here. And see if I can add her to the stream. So here is Tasia Valenza. I wanted to bring Tasia on just to make sure I didn't lose them or get stuck in solo layout. So Tasia is somebody I've known for a while. She's a Emmy winner, Emmy nominee, both of those separate, which is pretty cool. Not just, when you say that, of course, if it was the same award, you're automatically an Emmy nominee if you win the award. But Tasia actually has been nominated twice, which is really cool, 2 separate ways. And she's a voiceover coach. She's a dynamo. She helps people improve their communication skills. And I've been lucky to know her for, I guess it's probably about 2 years now. I've watched her take the TEDx stage, the Blue Talk stage. She's a Blue Talks community member. She's going to be in an upcoming edition of the book as well. And so I'm super excited to have Tasia take over my spot and let's say, as Lise would say, flip the script and take the seat as interviewer. And so, Tasia, I am going to let you take it away with Susan, and I'm going to jump backstage, as everybody knows, but I'll be here if you need me, and I'll jump back on to say our goodbyes at the end as well. So, Tasia, I'll let you have it.
Thank you, Corey. I love learning from you. Corey's always got those jewels, and I'm so glad that I get this opportunity today. It's amazing to have you, Susan, and thank you so much for being us. I'm a Blue Talker and you're a Blue Talker, and we get to know each other through this process. So thank you so much for coming. And so, as Corey would say, and of course, again, he gave a little bit of my background, but love to know your story. You have such a powerful story of empowerment and how you got here. And if you could tell us, the bio for you and the short version, and then we can explore it more, but how you present yourself in the way that most impacts and that you want to be known for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tasia. It's funny. Tasia. We just went through this whole Fantasia, and I'm a fan of Tasia, and then I said it wrong.
Don't worry. It gives you the chance to say it again, Fantasia, because everybody else just can't pronounce it either. So we just
Fantasia, right?
Everybody else.
Right. And so, that's so funny. Susan Binnie. I think that's so very, very clear for people. And I have been known as Susan Binnie. I'm not known as Susan anymore. And I like to think that that's a bit of a household name, or it's starting to be a household name. And so
I love that.
Yeah. And, I lost my internet earlier, and I love the fact that I do not like technology, but I love that so much because in the technological age that we're in right now, clearly we have to be online. It's so great because I am embracing my internet, but when I get so passionate about something and the work that I do, I'm so passionate about, I actually shut my internet down. So I'm very energetic, very empathic, very in tune with the energy and the inner work of story, more so than the outer work of story. And I know that we're going to get into that a little bit more, But I started my journey around story, ironically, 5 years ago when I was laid off from a 17-year job today.
Oh wow!
And
Today's your anniversary. How perfect that we get to interview you for your story 5 years after the beginning of it, right? That probably at that moment you weren't that excited and thinking that you'd be here 5 years later.
no, that day was the worst day of my life, and it has turned into the best day of my life. Because after 17 years of working in a job that you feel you're going to end your career in, and that's going to be sort of the end job, I'm going to retire as an old lady, not for profit, helping people, with their health. And here I am 5 years later, proving that at 53, I am at the top of my game and loving life and empowering women to prosper and heal from their story. And that's really what I do in a very short form of working with women, because we all, especially women, but we all need to get our voice heard. We all need to get our story out there to the world. But we also need to recognize that there's 2 or 3 stories. I mean, we've got a million stories, but there's a story that we tell ourselves about why we're not putting ourselves out there, why we're not enough, why we're not worthy. And then there's that story that is going to connect with the work that you do in the world, that people need to understand, oh my goodness, you got started because of that, and you got connected and you do the work you do because of that. And that's what's going to inspire them to work with you and be your clients. So I get to work with, I don't have to, I don't need to, but I get to work with women every day to help them figure out where they're at within that story process.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you got laid off from your job, and then, I mean, how did you figure out, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take this horrible situation and I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to teach women to embrace their stories and overcome their stories, rewrite their stories. It seems like you're very much about rewriting the stories. So tell us a little bit about the journey, how you actually came to that and how it, because people do love to know that, when you're at the top of your game, that you weren't. I mean, we always, we identify with the hero, and the hero's journey is that you have to overcome. So how did you get from the lowest point to turning it into this ability to not only change your story, but then help women change theirs and where you are today? Because it must be an incredible story. I mean, obviously we can't take all day, but I definitely want to hone in. How did you overcome it? And then how did you turn it into this?
Yeah. So I actually have a story that I could probably tell you for the next 3 weeks. Start now, go. 3 weeks later, I'll be done.
Well, let's do the elevator pitch version.
However, because I have a master component of actually honing in on the story and telling a very powerful story in a very short period of time, and that's what I help people do. I can start by saying this. 25 years ago, my daughter was born with a disability. I thought she was the perfect little baby, 5 fingers, 5 toes. She cried. Everything was wonderful. And slowly she turned into this incredible daughter who needed me because she was told she couldn't do things. You can't walk, you can't crawl, you can't eat by yourself, you can't feed yourself, you can't dress yourself. All of these things that the doctors threw at me that she can't do. She has mild cerebral palsy, but you know what? If she walked up here right now on this interview, if you didn't know she had a disability, you would never know. Wow. Now, I'm not going to take credit for that because she has the credit for that. But what I did do was give her the tools to take that word can't out of her vocabulary and really look at what you can do and how you can do that. And how does that look different for you, but you can still succeed? So in the process of being laid off at a job that I was at for the flexibility and the, everything for my daughter and for my family, caregiver extraordinaire, right? Right. Having that flexibility with the job that I was at was fantastic, but I never thought about working for myself and creating my own business and helping people in the world in a really big way. Always wondered, what is my purpose? Why am I here? We're born, we have kids, we get married, we get divorced, we die, not necessarily in that order, but what is it all for?
Right.
I've been helping people since I was 6 years old. Right. And through my journey, and then I'll get back to answering your question about how I kind of got us all into this. when I started my journey, I didn't realize that it really wasn't the doctors who put that word can't in my daughter's vocabulary. It was the story I uncovered about 2 years ago that my brother told me when I was 6 years old that I wasn't good enough and I wasn't pretty and I had no friends and I wasn't, worthy and all of these things. And I uncovered that story. I was 6, he was 8, but because that was the formative years of my life.
Yes.
And I talked to be heard. And I would talk any opportunity I got. And my dad said to me, Susan, figure out what you love to do and then decide and figure out how you're going to get paid for that. Well, I love to talk, right? You can't get paid for that. Really? And there were so many different ways, right? So when I was laid off from my job, I was like, what am I going to do? I can't, go back to school. I can't, I can't pursue my dream of being a lawyer. I can't. I'm like almost 50 and like I'm screwed. There's nothing I can do. My life is over. And that was, part of my limited beliefs as I grew up. And what it boiled down to was, if I can take the word can't out of my daughter's vocabulary, certainly I can take it out of mine.
Yeah.
I figured out a process to help people do that.
Yeah.
It is a big mindset shift.
Yes.
But when we look at things and here's my best example, I can jump out of an airplane without a parachute and survive. And so can you.
Really?
And people look at me and they go, what? Like, what?
How?
Now, I choose not to, but I can. And that's the distinction, right? I can do anything I want to do. It's what I choose to do.
Right.
So I can jump out of an airplane and likely I would survive because God, the universe would have my back. I know that. And I'm a very strong person and I'd land on my feet. I always do in every tragedy. But that's the story I tell myself. So right. I can, but I choose not to. As opposed to I can't, I won't, I'm not able to.
Right. And it's very much about the affirmations. I mean, my whole platform is to give great voice. And the most important person we give great voice to is ourselves, the self-speak. And I take it into the out loud, like, what do we say? But most of us are in our thoughts. And these stories that get written from 0 to 7 that are programmed, that are unfortunately from our parents or our closest, our siblings, that tell us that we just download and take as fact, that stays in our hard drive, which I like to say the unconscious, until we become aware of it and we get to rewrite our story. So that's something that you're very much about, literally helping women specifically rewrite their story and stand in their power, and then achieve and allow for all the success so a lot of yours is, right, I can. So how do you do that for them? How do you help them get to that place?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things, a lot of process. It depends on where somebody wants to go and where they're at as to exactly what they need, right?
So you help them uncover like what their goals are. Like, how do you basically say, let's really ask the questions that maybe no one's ever asked you. Like, what do you really want in life?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what it boils down to. What do you want? What is that vision of the bigger self? And then let's work it backwards. So my big movement and my big story, if you will, is yes, I can. Yes, I will, because yes, I am. I mean, you see that behind me over here. And what it really boils down to is I was at a conference in 2016 when my whole journey started. And this woman was on stage and says, if I can do this, you can do this. And I'm like, yes, I can. What I didn't know was, what the hell is she doing? And how do I do this? Right? She's up there, she's making money, she's motivating, she's inspiring, but what does she do? And what is my unique abilities? What can I do?
Right.
And so, yes, I can. So can you, big whoop.
Right.
What can you do? What will you do to get there? Who are you? So once you declare, yes, I can, and that can be the big picture, that can be the 5-year goal, that can be the 10-year goal, or that can be the day's goal. Yes, I can get out of bed today. Mm-hmm. Yes, I will get up and stretch and be proud to just jump up so that I can do this interview. Because yes, I am a powerful woman and I have a story that needs to be shared. Mm-hmm. Because I want to inspire women and empower them to live the life that they're meant to live and work with those and serve those who they're meant to serve and have the life they want. So it sounds very simplistic, but when you break it down and you actually, like you say, the mantras, the affirmations, when you write down and declare, yes, I can, what can you do? Yes, I will. What will you do to get there? And yes, I am. Who are you? Write it down, declare it, and start to share it. When I was little, my dad always said to me, if you are a duck and you continue to quack like a duck, you're going to turn into a duck.
Right.
So don't say you're a duck, right?
Right. I always say that one of my statements that someone gave me, and it became my mantra and that I love to share. Whatever you say with conviction and consistency after I am or I have tells your future. So what do you want to tell? So you really have to be very aware. As soon as you say the words I am, make that a positive statement. If your goal is I want to be successful, I have this idea, and then you say I'm an idiot, I'm so stupid, I'm a loser, that's incongruent. So you want to be very clear that as a discipline, whatever you say after I am, like you said, no more I can't, I can, I am, I deserve, I have. And an affirmation is actually not a present positive statement, which is what I thought it was. It's what you say, you affirm. So that's so important that you teach that and make that a habit. It's habitual thinking that becomes what I like to say, habitual speaking. And so it sounds to me like you do very much of that. So what would be, I know you work with women. Do you work with groups individually, or do you do individuals and group training? How do you work with people? Just so if people want to start working with you, how do they find you, and what's the best way to get involved in a Susan Binnie training?
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer to that is yes. Yes, I work with individuals. Yes, I work with groups. I started Powerful Women Unite, which is really the umbrella of the company that I work under. And that started to bring together women who felt like they were alone in their business, because that's the worst possible thing. When you think that you're alone and nobody else is going through what you're going through. We're all human. We all have these thoughts, I'm not good enough. Well, yes, you are. And this is the story you need to tell. So a lot of my work is individualized, because your story is going to be different than, the woman down the street. Right. And it's going to evolve at a different rate. And it's supposed to. It's your story. You get to choose where it starts when you tell it. You get to choose where it ends. You get to choose whether it's a good story or bad story. So it's your story. So a lot of it is individualized. However, just recently, I've really recognized that there is, a baseline, and there's a bit of I don't want to say template, because nothing I do is really a templated thing. There is a process, and that process is very similar for everybody. And so that process, I now take people through in an online course. I did it 2 years ago, and it was so comprehensive that after about 3 weeks, people were like, oh my gosh, you've given me so much information. I'm so overwhelmed. So I've broken it down into very, very simple terms, and it's going to be starting here in September. And the end of September. And it's really about taking people through, how do you dig into your story? How do you know if it's the right story? You go a little bit through your timeline of these are the things I've overcome in my life. And then it's about really exploring, how am I telling this, and am I confident telling it? Because, as being a voice coach and doing all of that, you can be the most confident person in the world. But the minute you get up on that stage, the minute you get in front of audience, this morning, I was like, right, I'm going to be talking about me and right. And so these emotions come up, and it's natural, but it's about breaking through that fear, crossing that line and breaking through, breathing, and doing what you need to do to present your story, and knowing that as long as you're speaking from a place of real, authentic truth. I teach people how to speak from their heart, right? You can have notes, you can be scripted, all of that. But when you speak from your heart and your truth and get your story out to the world, for the people that are in front of you, what is the energy in the room? What do they need to hear? Instinctively knowing that if I start talking and everyone's starting to yawn, I got to switch it up a little bit, and I got to change this. But the content is still the same.
Right.
And always recognizing, and this is one of the biggest things I teach people. Now, I didn't coin this phrase. I'm not sure who did, but there's a story that you want to tell. There's a story that you tell. And when you're done, there's a story you wish you would have told. But just to tell them enough to say, I need to know more about that person.
Right.
It sounds fantastic. I want to know more about her. How do I jump in? How do I get in touch with her? And, you know, the best way to get in touch with me is through Powerful Women Unite, which is a group this way. I'm always confused which way I'm pointing. Powerful Women Unite, which is a group on Facebook.
Great.
PowerfulWomenUnite.com, SusanBinnie.com. Emailing me at Susan@SusanBinnie.com. I made it very, very simple. We have a community, Powerful Women Unite community. Type in Susan Binnie on Google. I'm going to come up and get in touch with me, and we'll get you started, because the course is not right for everybody.
Right.
A one-on-one is not right for everybody.
Right.
And maybe you will never speak your story from stage, and that's okay.
Right. It's a matter about if you still have the ability to have a one-on-one audience. It's a matter of being honored and heard, because ultimately everybody as a human wants to feel like we matter and we count and we're heard.
Absolutely.
So you're amazing. And I'd love to bring Corey back on, because I'm sure now that we know how to reach you and what you're about, it would be fantastic to wrap it up so we can leave them wanting more of Susan Binnie.
Absolutely.
So Corey, he's back, but that was fantastic and inspiring, and I love it.
Awesome stuff. Well, yes, indeed it was. I had a couple of things going on in the background, but I listened into almost everything I could, and I love it. I love the talk about superpower and the stories that you wish you told. All great stuff. Amazing as always. No Blue Talks community member has let me down. Bluesters, I like to call everybody. And you.
I love that she's wearing blue today. So thank you, in honor. And do you know, it was her fifth year anniversary from the beginning of her story. So what an auspicious day to be able to share your story, and it was just very inspiring.
100%. I loved every minute of it. So thank you so much, Tasia. Thank you so much, Susan. You guys were fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As you know, I like to keep them short and sweet. So I did this stuff on the front end, sharing a nugget. Hopefully, everybody took some great stuff away from it today. As always, we're just a message away. Let us know if we can help. Blue Talks, as you know now, this week is officially the launch week. So you can find out. Yeah, I'm excited. The videos, the first 2 videos are going to be up on the YouTube channel later today. The podcasts are already up. And so I'm looking at it as launch week, because the book basically just dropped yesterday. So if you want to know more about Blue Talks, for those that might be just tuning in for the first time, it's bluetalks.com, blue without the E. And of course, you can follow all our Facebook pages, and I'm sure you'll see updates there and different things that are happening. So thank you so much for being a magical part of it, everybody. Thank you, Tasia. Thank you, Susan. And I hope you guys have a great rest of and a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you. It was great to be with you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.